Good morning, welcome to Saudi Arabia, where for the 5th time in history, electric racing will take to the streets here in Diriyah. We will be going racing at the spectacular UNESCO World Heritage Site in Diriyah, and welcome to the start of Season 8 of the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship. I've been waiting a rather long time to say this, but today we go racing. Let's take a look at the spectacular calendar. 16 races, 10 cities. We've got a few new ones on there as well. Round 9 and 10, Jakarta, Vancouver, and we finish off the championship in Seoul, South Korea. It's going to be absolutely spectacular. There is Antonio Felix da Costa, full of energy, arriving at the track this morning. And yeah, I spoke to him this morning. He said he was in a good place. Jake Dennis there, our most successful rookie in Formula E history, taking 3rd for BMW Andretti last season. We have, I think that's Sergio Martoro doing some form of dance, is it? I don't know what that is. We'll have to ask him about it later. But again, full of the joys of life coming into the first round of Season 8. Right, so there we have it. Our entry list, 22 drivers from 11 teams. Nick de Vries, our reigning champion for Mercedes EQ. Stoffel Van Dorn. We've got a few new drivers in there. Oliver Askew, the American driver in at Avalanche Andretti. And Antonio Felix Costa there at DS Techeetah. Another new driver in, well, actually it's a driver swap, Oliver Oland in at Mahindra Racing. He leaves Nissan Edams after 3 years. Maximilian Günther steps in to take his place at Nissan Edams. And Antonio Giovanazzi, a big name coming from Formula 1, 3 years at Alfa Romeo. He's now stepping in to the Dragon Penske Autosport team. Now this is undoubtedly a firm favourite with the drivers. We love racing at this track. Here is 3-time Indy 500 winner Dario Franchitti with our track guide.
So here we are, 2.49 kilometers, 21 turns, low grip surface, a lot of sand on the surface. We are in the desert after all. Turn 1, fairly quick apex. Turn 3 caused a lot of problems in the past. From 5 down the hill to turn 14, over half a kilometer, one corner straight into the next steeply downhill. At the bottom of the hill, 14 starts setting up through the long 16, 17 up, steeply uphill. Long straight, big overtaking opportunity at the end. Turn 18, that's where it's all going to happen. Attack mode activation zone on the outside of 19. Turn 21, the last corner. And that is a lap of the slippery, tricky, really cool Diriyah circuit.
What a brilliant way to describe it. It really does have all the elements, and the drivers do absolutely love it. Well, there is a view of what's going to be taking place here this weekend. Dario, it is so exciting. It has been 5.5 months since our last race as Season 7 closed in Berlin. And I don't know about you, but looking around the track, there's this air of calm and excitement at the same time.
There's a bit of expectation. Everybody's thinking, have we done the right things over those 5.5 months to put us in position to challenge? Mercedes are thinking, have we done the right things to stay ahead of the pack? Everybody sort of, yeah, they've worked hard over the winter. It's whether they've done that in the right way, and we'll find out later this afternoon. Yeah, absolutely. Now, track temperatures there about 16 degrees. It's going to be tricky because it gets a lot cooler in the evening, which is, of course, when we go racing. That is Nick de Vries, the man with a target on his back. He had a phenomenal season last year with Mercedes EQ, obviously clinching the title in that final race. He put in a pretty good session yesterday. Let's have a little look there. So race controller saying that the session will not start on time. Well, see if we can find out exactly what's going on. I don't know whether that's due to track conditions. Obviously, I think there's a little bit of work going on at the track at the moment, so just getting the final tweaks finished to make sure it is all ready for today's racing. 3 sessions today, FP2, qualifying a bit later, and then, of course, the race. But this is a double header of racing this weekend. Not just once, we get to do it twice. There we are, the Mercedes badge, the last season
for Mercedes this year, so they're going to be looking to go out on a high, that's for sure.
Yeah, and there's another Mercedes-powered car, the Venturi of Lucas Di Grassi. Lucas, one of the very earlier, in fact, the first person to drive a Formula E car, and he'd been with Audi the whole time. Now we see him in the Mercedes-powered Venturi, and it's going to be fascinating to see how he performs in that car this season with his new teammate Edo Mortara, a whole new group of people to work with. But one thing we know about Lucas Di Grassi, he knows how to win races, how to win championships in Formula E.
He also looks really cool in that car. I don't know how he's going to perform, but he definitely looks the part, that's for sure. It has been an amazing relationship that they've had. But now we're going to go to Stoffel van Dorn, who actually, despite some pretty impressive performances last year, didn't quite finish necessarily, I think, where he probably deserved to. Yesterday we saw him again slightly struggling down in P14 in FP1.
But not as bad as his teammate Nick de Vries, who did 2 laps yesterday and put it in the wall, and so got absolutely no practice time at all.
That's not how you want to start the first weekend, is it?
Really not.
Here we are, Edo Mortara. So this is going to be an interesting race for him, because this is the first time that he's got Lucas Di Grassi alongside him in the garage. And I think, you know, Edo Mortara has he's kind of always been the lead driver at Rocket Venturi with that Mercedes powertrain. I mean, he did a phenomenal job last season, finishing P2 in the championship. But how will he find having Lucas Di Grassi alongside him? Not an easy one.
No, it's not, and it'll be interesting to see how those two guys work together. But I was talking to Edo this morning. He's recovering from injuries that he got in Berlin last year, the championship final. Ran into the back of the stationary car of Mitch Evans at the start. Not Edo's fault, not Mitch's fault either, actually. But yeah, because some pretty big injuries that he's been recovering from, and he's definitely ready to go. There's another man that's ready to go, Nikki.
Absolutely. Well, Sam Bird has won not just once, but twice here in Diriyah, and what a way to impress. It was his first race with Jaguar Racing last season where he brought home the win, and I'm sure he's going to be looking to have a repeat performance of that. Although again, he wasn't necessarily quite on the money yesterday, as we would have expected to see from him. He was P16 in FP1, although it's so early to tell. It's really difficult to look into those times. I think there's so much going on in terms of changing the setup and running different setups ahead of today's racing. There is Mitch Evans, a Kiwi driver. He did well yesterday. He P5.
I think in a lot of ways he's my dark horse is the wrong word, but he's the guy who I think could win this championship this year. I really.
Whoa! He's called it already, ladies and gentlemen.
I've got a good feeling about Mitch Evans. I do. I think he's ready to go. You know, that horrible scene last year where he put himself in position to win the first Formula E World Championship, and as he accelerated off the line, there was a mechanical failure. And that was it all over. I think he's yeah, and with this new qualifying format, which we'll get into later, I really feel that I think Jaguar have got a fast car, and I think Mitch Evans is going to be one of the guys battling week in, week out for that championship. Yeah,
I mean, he was saying this morning that they very much feel that they're going to be at the sort of the sharp end of this championship. But so, I'm sure, is this man, Antonio Felix da Costa, the Season 6 champion, who really did have a spring in his step, chatting to him this morning. I think one of the big things that they were saying, actually, at DS Tachita is the team has a lot of stability. They haven't really made any sort of big changes in terms of, like, headcount and personnel, and that's giving them this sort of sense of calm, maybe before the storm. Who knows? We'll find out.
Yeah, I thought they'd had quite a rough winter, actually, the old DS Tachita team. But man, that didn't. Jake Dennis, I think he spent quite a lot of time in, I think he said Dubai, just having a good time. And he's so impressive last season, Jake Dennis. He came in and people thought, and you know, the Andretti guys have hired Jake Dennis, okay. And if you looked at his single-seater career, you thought, okay, this guy's got a chance. And he took every opportunity last year, was phenomenal. You know, as you said, highest placed rookie ever in Formula E, finishing third in the championship. Could have won it. Super impressive, and it's been a great addition to the series.
Yeah, I mean, he really could have won it. Again, a mistake. Well, it wasn't even his mistake, was it? It was an error in the car that threw away, taking home some points in that last race. But there's Jean-Eric Verne, the teammate of Antonio Felix da Costa. Apparently, he was described as being, this is Jean-Eric Verne 2.0. He's stopped drinking. He stopped smoking. He's getting married. He's feeling very positive about life. And this is possibly why we saw such a good performance from him yesterday, because he did a cracking lap.
Wow, go on, Jean-Eric. Make the big changes.
That's what I've been told anyway.
There's Andre Lordran in the Porsche. Yeah, a difficult season for Andre last year. He's a great driver, multiple Le Mans winner. I love racing against him at Goodwood. We have a really good time doing that. But he loves motorsport and just struggled. Got himself in positions which you wouldn't expect a guy of his experience to get in. So I think he needs a reset this year. And I would trust me, I think it will happen. If the Porsche is up to the challenge, he could be a guy that wins his first Formula E race. He hasn't won a Formula E race yet. How is it possible? That's a bizarre stat.
I feel like a lot of drivers say that he's quite aggressive on track, but we'll come to that later. Let's talk about Oliver Askew, because he is new in at Avalanche Andretti. He's got a bit of history with the team, of course. He won the 2019 Indy Lights Championship for them, and our first full-time American driver. Diriyah, you must know Oliver rather well, and you know, given your intel and experience working with Andretti.
I first met Oliver at the Walter Hayes Trophy at Silverstone a couple of years ago. He was racing Formula 4 and he's had quite a meteoric rise since then. Did a full season in IndyCar for the McLaren team, had a big shunt at Indy and got himself a pretty bad concussion, which really affected him through the rest of the season, I think. And it's nice to see him get this reset with the Andretti Formula E team. He's excited about it. It's great for the series to have a full-time American driver in an American team. And he was talking about the challenges that he's facing, adapting to it, but he will, and I think he'll be a great addition to the series on the driver front.
Absolutely. Now, the driver in once again at Tag Heuer Porsche is Pascal Wehrlein. Pascal actually did a great job in qualifying. I think he was had the highest number of or the highest qualifying average over the course of last season. But again, you know, I think the Tag Heuer Porsche guys, they are really looking to improve on their performances from last year. Envision Racing, no longer Envision Virgin Racing. This is just the Envision team. Nick Cassidy is also back, looking like he's collecting his thoughts.
Or sleeping.
This season. Yeah, difficult, can't quite see his eyes if they're open or not.
You know, you could, at that point, you're sort of either looking at data on the dashboard, the engineer's talking to you, or you're just trying to get focused. And one of the best ways to get focused is just to close your eyes and get rid of all the stuff that's going on outside the garage in your field of vision, people taking pictures of you, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it looks like he's just, whatever he was doing, he's just stopped it, and he's now looking more down at the dash.
Yeah, I did hear that some of the drivers were taking to doing a bit of extra mindfulness, but we'll see if that pays off. So there is our new driver, Antonio Giovanazzi. He came from Formula 1, having done 3 years, and has been thrown into the driving seat here. Very little experience, really, in the Formula E car. He was testing in Valencia to try and really get as much experience in these single-seater electric machines as possible. I think, speaking to him, he was slightly thrown at how different it is. Obviously, there's a huge amount to take on board, and it's not just the car and the powertrain and the energy management, but obviously this year there's a whole new set of rules and regulations that we'll go through over the course of this session as well, relating to the qualifying format, relating to the cars have got more power, more energy. There's Jay Penske there, the founder and principal owner of Dragon Penske Autosport, focusing hard there. But yeah, big rule changes in this season. Shall we? Well, quickly, let's talk about Robin Freins before we get into too much detail. Robin, what a season he had last year. Very consistent. I think he was the only driver to have managed to finish every race. He completed every lap in season 7, which really is quite an achievement in Formula E, isn't it?
Well, we talked about Robin over the years of being quite, as we see on board, this is a driver's eye view. We've pixelated all the information on the dash so the other teams can't tell what they're doing. But Robin, we talked about him being sort of, he's very inconsistent, but when he was on it, unbelievably quick. Last year, as you say, we saw a different Robin, and he really got a nice vein of consistency. And yeah, I think he's another one that's really maybe changed up a little bit what he's been doing in the off-season. And yeah, we'll see if it pays dividends. He's incredibly talented. Talking about talented, Sebastian Buemi, past champion in Formula E, but what a difficult season he and Nissan had last year, Nikki.
Heartbreaking. I mean, he's the man with all the records. You know, he's had the most wins at 13, the most poles at 14, the most fastest laps at 7. But last season, he didn't lead a single lap. You know, the performance just wasn't there from him and the car. So fingers crossed. They've been working hard on their software because, of course, they can't change their hardware this year. The cars are homologated. And there is Max Günther, who for the first time will be racing for Nissan Edams. He's come across from what was BMW I Andretti and settling into his new colours with his new team. I mean, what is it like when you have your first race with your new team?
Oh, you're still learning. You're still learning everybody's names. That's honestly one of the things. Just okay, well, what does this person do? What do they do? And there's a certain part of you want to impress. You want to impress anytime you're in the car, but with a new team as well, you want to impress. You want to show the old team. There's definitely some of that going on, and there's, you know, certain bits will fit you better in the new team than the old team, and vice versa. So I stayed with the Andretti team for 10 years, and then I moved to Ganassi, and I was always scared of moving somewhere. Then I moved to Ganassi. I was like, oh wow, this is really good, and I really enjoyed that new challenge.
Paid off. Right, Alexander Sims, was he just getting himself mentally prepared going through the track layout, or was he having a little snooze?
I think, you know, you see skiers do it. I think he's running through the track in his mind. He's running through all the changes he's going to have to make, and just the line he wants to take and how he wants to maybe approach a corner that he was maybe not doing well yesterday. And you know, his teammate Oliver Rowland was quickest yesterday, quite a bit quicker than Alexander. So he'll have looked at data, how he needs to improve today. The circuit was incredibly low grip last night, and that's probably going to continue today. 2 seconds slower than we saw at the similar point last season.
Now look at that snazzy helmet. That belongs to new racing driver, British racing driver, the 14th British racing driver that we've had in Formula E, Dan Ticktum. He's in at Neo 333 for the season. Our youngest Formula E driver at just 22 years old. Yeah, he's in up against Oliver Turvey. I mean, Neo, again, they actually started out quite well last season in Saudi Arabia, scoring some points. Oliver Turvey brought some points home for the team, but that was really the extent of their success. It didn't really kick off from then. So I'm sure they will be hoping that the work done over the off-season is going to pay off. And yeah, good luck to Dan Ticktum in his first Formula E race.
Yeah, we see Oliver Turvey. Oliver's been the quarterback of the Neo team, and he's gone through the struggles with them, and it would be nice to see him get some of the benefit of all that hard work over the the 7 seasons of Formula E that we've done. But it's a smaller team, and full of smart people, and they just need to get a little bit of it's small gains, and that'll put them right up the front of the grid if they can manage that. But the problem is all the other teams are moving forward at probably a quicker rate. A lot of that due to budget. And you see Nick de Vries again, as we talked about. Tough day yesterday for him. Only an hour of practice now per event, and he missed 50% of it, which is a huge problem. And I think we're about to go green here, but let's have a look at the move from last night. And watch the car bottom, and the back end just slides around. He's fighting for grip. You see how slippery it is offline. Look at the difference between the online and the offline with the sand, and that was enough. Look at the steering. These cars crabbing. The damage is done. It wasn't a massive amount of damage. You see it on board here. Feel the impact. There's the impact in slow-mo. And they were able to fix the car, so no big penalties today. And his teammate Stoffel van Dorn almost followed him in. But yeah, that was a costly mistake.
And it does have such a knock-on effect when you've got so many different things that you need to run before you're going into qualifying, particularly with this new qualifying format. It really is going to cost him some crucial practice time. Interesting as well, I think a lot of the drivers love the track here, but particularly in that first sector, if you kind of mess up the beginning, it really then has a snowball effect on the rest of your lap, doesn't it?
Yeah, particularly the 5 through 14 section, which is about half a kilometre long. Because it's so steeply downhill as well, you cannot overdo the first part in the sequence, because you then can't gather the car up pretty much before hitting the wall in the next corner. So, but that's the fine margins the drivers on any street course deal with, and obviously all our Formula E tracks are street courses.
Right, so the pit lane is now open. The track is ready to rock, and our 22 drivers will be taking to the streets of Diriyah for the second time this weekend for FP2, putting in their last bit of practice before qualifying gets underway. Now, we've got this new qualifying format that I keep mentioning and not talking about, that basically means the cars are going to go out in, there's sort of a group kick-off with the group qualifying where we get half the grid out, 11 of the drivers go out together for a 12-minute session, and then the other 11 drivers go out for 12 minutes of a 12-minute session. And in that time, they have to set 2 quali laps, and then it goes into a dual system.
They only have to set 1, but they have to set 1 in the first 6 minutes.
Ah, okay, fine, okay. But you would set 1 in the second.
If you can, you absolutely would, yeah, because the track evolution is going to be so big.
So officially you only need to set 1 in the first 6 minutes. And then it goes into these duels, which I really can't wait to see for the quarterfinals, semi-finals and finals. So we're literally going to see 2 cars battling it out head-to-head on track. And actually, Jake Dennis was saying that he's really excited about it, and he really hopes he gets to go up against Oliver Rowland in one of these duels in qualifying, because I think they've raced together, you know, for the last 15 years, on and off over the years. They did this sort of junior karting and grew up together, which is quite fun to think that we might get to see some sort of old rivals on track battling it out during qualifying, and what that might bring.
I used to love when that would happen. You'd end up having a battle. You know, you're sort of, in my case, I was 40 years old racing against someone I'd raced against at 10 years old, and that was always good fun.
Now, Nick de Vries, how careful is he going to take it in this session?
But he can't, Nicky. That's the problem. He can't. He's got to push. He's got to push the whole time. And that, again, that's that tightrope. That's that. He has to put out of his mind what happened yesterday, not be thinking, oh, don't crash, don't crash, don't crash. Because as soon as somebody says, I've had a couple of less experienced team owners over the years have said stuff like, okay, man, be careful, don't crash. Of course, the first thing you do is crash. So he's got to get that out of his mind. He's got to push 100%, because otherwise he's wasting his time out there. But he's been doing this since he was a kid, and he's been through this situation before, I am absolutely sure. So he's straight into his testing plan. The engineers have got all these different plans, you know, working out the energy consumption for the race, the balance for the race, because obviously the race is tonight. Different conditions, which last night's practice was perfect for race conditions because it was the cool night air. So all this has got to be taken into account, and the difference, we've said it before, but it's between success and failure is not massive amounts, it's all the tiny details make the difference between winning tonight and not even being in the points.
And also, they've got to get their head around this season, the cars get more power, which is brilliant, get an extra 30 kilowatts of power. So well, actually, it's attack mode, they get the extra 30 kilowatts. In race mode, they get 220 kilowatts, which is an up from 200. And then, just to confuse things, in qualifying, when you're doing the qualifying group, you get 220, but when you're doing the duel, you get 250. So you kind of want to run your qualifying lap at both 220 and 250.
Yeah, it's really difficult what they're asking the drivers to do. See Mitch Evans properly on it down the bottom of the hill, because the driver's got to find the limit in different track conditions at 220 kilowatts power, 250 kilowatts power. And trust me, it's a massive difference, because you're approaching the corner so much quicker, you're putting more pressure through the tyres, the acceleration is bigger, and you can see somebody's hit the wall. Where was that? Where was that? That was a massive... Is someone trying to have a look? Because there was a big dent in the wall down the bottom of the hill. Looks like someone's hit, but we haven't seen a yellow flag. It's not historic damage, because they just put the sponsor logos on the walls yesterday.
Aha, right, okay, well, we'll see if we can try and get a real replay of that to find out what happened. I'm sure it will be obvious any minute now.
As we see Mitch Evans with his new low downforce haircut.
So actually we're told that it was a previous time mark, so no car from this session, which is always good news. So we still have 22 cars.
Still 22 cars, yeah,
on
absolutely.
track without too much damage.
And you can see how careful the drivers are being through the turn 2-3 area. That corner has caught a lot of people out over the past seasons here in Diriyah. It looks quite a normal corner, but you see as soon as you try and extend just a little bit, into the wall you go.
Now, obviously, you know, I mentioned mentioned earlier about having more power in the course of the race, but you don't actually get more energy, which is, you know, the fuel that the drivers get to use. So how much more of energy management are we going to see during the course of this season?
Well, you're going to have more energy management. You're going to be approaching the corners quicker, but you're going to have to do more lift and coast, more regeneration, more putting energy back into the battery under braking. So it's going to change the shape of the track, if that makes sense. The way you drive the track is going to be different too, where the areas that you save energy, the areas you accelerate, it's all going to be a little bit different than in previous years. So that's another sort of curveball, to use an American analogy, that the teams and the drivers are going to have to work out. Yeah, that's the timeline there, just to be clear. That's the finish line and the timeline of the race. It's not the start line and the finish line are in different areas.
Okay, so they are the times there for FP2 so far. Jake Dennis, the man to beat at the moment, with a 1:12.3. Sebastian Webby, that's always nice to see. Sebastian Webby near the top of the timings, haven't seen that for a while. Oliver Askew as well, also putting in a good job there. 6/10 off Jake Dennis's time.
Having practiced last night, somewhat unusually for Formula E, but practiced last night, first pre-practice one, so the drivers, the engineers will be studying so much data overnight, just trying to improve, to see where they were, you know, just losing a bit of time. And somebody like Oliver Askew, a rookie, is really going to have had a lot to learn over last night. Watch how his teammate Jake Dennis does certain things. He's going to be talking to Jake, talking to the team as well. So the curve of his improvement is going to be, I think, a lot bigger than maybe some of the more established guys like Lucas Di Grassi we see in the black Venturi coming into shot number 11.
Yeah, so big changes for Lucas Di Grassi. Of course, you know, he had the longest relationship with the team.
Yeah, go for one more push. Wehrlein now 3 seconds behind. Have a look if you can stay in front without disturbing.
So that was Oliver Askew's team radio there. Told to do another push lap.
Odd message from the engineer. Keeping, you know, make sure you can't disturb. The mirrors are very difficult to see out of, so it's very difficult for the driver to actually make that the decision. We're on driver's eye now with Lucas Di Grassi. This is him going down the hill. Let's just listen for a second. He's definitely doing a lift and coast lap. Car's bottom out there under full power. We've lost the signal a little bit. Through turn 13 now, and then braking for 14, and finally you've made it in one piece through that section of corners. Looking down at the dash, and just watch his eye line. His eye line, he's going to look where he wants the car to go. You watch him correcting as he gets back to the throttle. It's steeply uphill, the camera doesn't really show it. And then watch the bumps into turn 18. This is going to be the action spot.
Scenario 7 and acknowledge.
You hear, listen carefully, you hear the tyre slide. You hear it out of turn 21 here. You could hear it as he braked as well. And that's one of the sort of the keys for us in the commentary when the car is sliding around this 2-3 area. Back to Pascal Wehrlein in the Porsche, catching Lucas Di Grassi in front.
Very nice out there for Lucas Di Grassi. Pascal Wehrlein down in P18 at the moment. 2.2 seconds off Sergio Sotecamara, who did a good job here actually last season. He had one of his best performances finishing in P4.
Yeah, he really did. When the Dragon Penske cars qualified up front, we also sort of said, ooh, they're going to, you know, cause a roadblock and all this stuff, and they did not. They went out and they scored a load of points, and it was a really good day for them. I think it was in Saudi Arabia last season. Pascal Wehrlein certainly pushing a bit harder than we saw with Lucas Di Grassi in front. You can see him gaining a bit. This is the turn 18 area. This is where we expect the action tonight. It's bumpy. How wide it is as well. A lot of action. Attack mode, and we see Pascal Wehrlein go into attack mode activation zone. 3 sensors there you've got to cross to go from 220 to 250 kilowatts. So the tactical implications of when and how you use attack mode will be huge tonight and tomorrow night in the races here in Saudi Arabia, and then for the rest of the season too.
How much do you think we can look into previous results here in Diriyah? I mean, Pascal Wehrlein started on the front row previously. The cars themselves, obviously the hardware hasn't changed significantly. Well, it hasn't changed at all because it can't. The cars are homologated, but everyone's been working really hard on the software. Yeah, how much can we read into it?
But I think we know who we think the big teams are going to be. The amount of change that's been made in software, race to race, in previous seasons of Formula E, that shows me that, yeah, things could definitely be mixed up still, even with homologated hardware. I think the software, the electronics, how they use the electronics, how they change all that, the operating systems for the cars, that could be absolutely huge in the end result.
So let's have a look at Sergio Sette Camera. He is fastest on track still, going for another quick lap.
So he's about 4/10 slower than the fastest time from last night. So a decent job from Sergio Sette Camera. We saw last year, the first race here in Saudi Arabia, he was all action straight away, caused that yellow flag that hurt a lot of people's qualifying efforts. But he was all action. He was that way all season long. He's one of those drivers absolutely leaves nothing on the table. Unfortunately, sometimes that can, you know, he's maybe closer to the edge than the others, closer to the accident, but he's box office. He's wonderful to watch.
Nick Cassidy has just gone quickest of the session with a 1 minute 10.9. Well, not that much faster than Sergio Sette Camera, though. It is going to be close. And actually, it's amazing to see the top 15 drivers there, all within a second. A reminder of just how close the competition is in Formula E. And, you know, as we say every year, it just gets tighter, particularly this season, you know, when they've had so much experience since season 5 working with the Gen 2 car. Big changes are coming, though. This will be the last season when the teams have the Gen 2 car, because Gen 3 is just around the corner for season 9.
Sette Camera's on another decent lap. As we see Stoffel van Dorn getting a bit of traffic from Antonio Giovanazzi. Now he's going to slow down. Showing displeasure a little bit. As you see Edo Mortara and the Venturi as well. I think Giovanazzi's maybe just inexperience in Formula E getting in the way a little bit there. Difficult to get out of the way through that whole 5 through 14 series of 9 corners.
It must be really hard, though, coming into the championship at this point as a rookie. I think 15 of the drivers have raced here before. You know, it's not like back in the day, sort of season 1, season 2, there was a big turnover of drivers. They were changing on a regular basis, whereas now, actually, there's a lot of consistency. So for somebody like Giovanazzi coming in as a rookie driver, it must be pretty hard to hit the ground running.
Oh, definitely. I mean, absolutely, Nikki. What you've got to understand is that these guys understand when the car's telling them to save energy and stuff like that. If you're a Lucas de Grassi, you can go, okay, yeah, I'll ignore that for a second, make the pass, and then I'll figure it out. You've got that depth of experience. You understand the ebb and flow of a race. You understand how to get to the end of a race in first position. Whereas, as you say, the rookies, they just don't have that experience yet, and that's hard won. And that's again shows why Jake Dennis did such a great job last year. He was able to really pick it up very, very quickly.
So Mitch Evans has just gone quickest with a 1 minute 10.479. But let's see how Nick De Vries does. Well, let's see what the time comes in for his first sector.
So we're seeing a lot of the cars, the teams mates running nose to tail, and I think some of that is they're practicing for later. Let's hear what Nick De Vries says.
You can practice braking into 18.
What they're doing, the slipstream is really big on this long straight, so they're practicing saving energy in the slipstream for the race tonight. You heard Albert Lau say, this engineer on the radio saying, practice braking. That means he's going to attack the braking zone, go full throttle all the way up into that bumpy braking zone to see how the car brakes. That's something he'll have to do tonight if he is going to make some overtaking maneuvers. If he doesn't do what he did last year, which was qualify pole and drive away from the field.
Yeah, well, to qualify in pole now, it's going to be rather tough because you've got to put in four qualifying laps basically. So you've got the group qualifying, then the quarterfinals, the semi-finals, and the finals. So they're going to have their work cut out during qualifying going forward. So now with Antonio Felix Costa in his lap. Stoffel van Dorn just went quickest in sector 1.
So Mitch Evans with the quickest lap of the weekend at 10.4 up ahead. But Jean-Eric Verne He's got the car turned up to 11. He's got full power, 250 kilowatts. As he goes through 2 and 3, he's got traffic ahead though. Look at the car bouncing over those bumps in 3. The surface is pretty bumpy. One of the Andretti cars did a good job to get out of the way though, Jake Dennis. Let's see what that first sector is going to look like.
Such a slalom, that sector, isn't it? It's just brilliant. It looks like so much fun.
Yeah, he's lost a couple of tenths though, down through that sector. He's definitely sliding around. I wonder how much of that was the traffic ahead of him. We'll see as he comes through sector 2. He was on a mighty lap last night, but made a mistake right here.
I mean, the track looks so dirty still. How much evolution do you think we're going to see between now and, you know, qualifying taking place a bit later?
Well, we'll certainly see a lot between today's race and tomorrow's, and that will mean that the drivers, the teams will have to change the balance of the cars as well, because there'll be that much more grip available.
Although it's amazing, there's been this kind of sandstorm that's come in over the last couple of days. You know, you can actually see, if you look into the distance, the visibility isn't perfect. And it just means that everything is just this light covering of sand everywhere. You know, even within half an hour, the conditions change.
Yeah, Jean-Eric Verne up to P2, 110.6. He was quickest of all in sector 3. So he's, I think he's looking quite good. He just had that traffic in the first lap. And you see Antonio Felix da Costa, his teammate, on a good lap as he comes up to the last corner. No drama in turn 20. When had drama there with his teammate last year in the race, but he goes P1, 110.313.
Lovely, 3/10 up on Jean-Eric Verne. And Pascal Wehrlein also just gone quickest with a 1:09.
That's a mighty lap. That's a big lap. And you see the Michelin tires in the garage. They get 3 sets of tires for the weekend. 6 front, 6 rear.
Yeah, so you can change your tyres during the qualifying session, which again...
But you can't change the pressures. You can change the physical tyre, but you can't change the pressure because they're in park firmly. Robin Freins from last to P2 in Vision car. Sam Bird had a black helmet on yesterday. Now he's got a pink helmet.
Yeah, they just like to keep us on our toes, just to confuse things a little bit more. I like that graphic that we had up earlier, actually, that was on Nick de Vries. It showed you which driver was in which car. It's going to be very useful for us. So back on board with Nick de Vries, our reigning Formula E champ. Let's see what he can do.
P1. I'll miss half the practice, and yeah. That's
very
a good way
nice
to recover,
indeed.
yeah.
Yeah, so much for us saying that, oh, it's going to make such a difference missing FP1.
But
clearly
in
hasn't
the race,
affected him at all.
yeah, let's see what it does in the race tonight. Lucas de Grassi pushing hard. He's coming towards the end of the lap. This is turn 19. Looks like he's not going to get the traffic ahead of him, which is good.
So yeah, I mean, Lucas de Grassi, so he's done 7 years with Audi, longest partnership in Formula E history. Now in at Rocket Venturi. Lots of changes for him to get his head round. One good thing, he lives in Monaco and they're based in Monaco, so he doesn't have to travel far to work.
Yeah, and there's the team principal, Jerome D'Ambrosio. And Jerome has been on the podium here in Saudi as a driver. He was deputy team principal last year, moved up to team principal this year. You see Dan Tinktum, exciting young driver, new on the grid. I think if you look at his Formula 2, Formula 3 credentials, he's going to do a great job in Formula E this season.
Yeah, Formula 2 race winner.
The patience required that would be the one thing he's really going to, and that going into the unknown that we talked about, that's something he's going to have to just develop as the year goes on. But he's really pushing.
Nearly half the age of the oldest driver in Formula E. Not naming any names. Not very much.
Look at the cars bottoming out. You see there's a couple of points in the track where the wooden plank underneath the car is leaving marks on the circuit. And let's have a... Yeah, he's quickest of anybody so far. He's done a great job as he comes up to turn 18. He's ahead of
that would be a blinder.
That would be fantastic for the Neo team, for Dan Tinktum as well, for his confidence. Yeah, he's driving the car beautifully.
Well, Neo did do well in last year.
Bit of understeer in turn 21 though, goes third. Yeah, very good job. Less than just about half a tenth of a second off Nick de Vries.
And Oliver Turvey, his teammate, right down there at the bottom, P 21.
Yeah, I'll give Turvey a chance. This might be his. He's now on his. He's now starting his full power lap. Look how quickly the timing screen has changed.
Absolutely, and you know, the names that you would expect: Mortara, Oliver Rowland from yesterday, Nick de Vries, Van Dorn, all up there. Interesting to see what Sam Bird can do. So, Eden Mortara for the Rocket Venturi team, currently in P5. But yeah, Jerome D'Ambrosio stepping in as team principal. Obviously, these are the...
P1 for Mortara
Wow.
in the Venturi. Sorry, go ahead, Nick.
No. That is a phenomenal lap, isn't it? A 1:09.5.
But I think we're seeing some track evolution too. I think we're seeing the track getting better, so the later you can leave it, the better. Sergio Setti Camera has now gone quickest again of anybody. So that's a great job by him. Yeah, I think you got to say that you know, see Sims changing the tyres again, trying to keep. You're going to have cold tyres to start the group stage in qualifying today, so you've got to try and simulate that. So another set of tyres on.
And do they need to just practice this? Because, you know, we haven't done that in a qualifying session, so they need to practice it now before we get into qualifying.
Absolutely. Lordran, did Lordran get a bit held up there? I don't know. He was less than a tenth away. He lost a couple of tenths that last sector of the lap. But again, the Porsche right in there. Dan Tinktum, who was quickest a minute ago, is now P10, or sorry, went to P3, is now P10 already. It's just moving so quickly. 8 minutes to go in the session, and everybody clearly sees how important qualifying is. And Nick Cassidy's got some traffic, though, ahead of him. Nice job by the Andretti car getting out of the way.
How much time do you actually spend looking in your wing mirrors to check for traffic?
Well, when you're on a slow lap like that, you spend a lot, and the engineers are talking to you. But like I said earlier, with those wings above the rear wheels, the mirrors are almost impossible to see out of.
And you can't really hear them coming, or can you?
No, you certainly can't. But you can't even in an internal combustion car. Nick Cassidy, quarter of a second up on the rest of the field so far. Locks up a little bit into 18. Has to take a sort of a shallow line coming in. That puts him slightly offline for 19. Got to get this braking zone for 21 right. Don't induce too much understeer in the car. He managed to get the car rotated. There you go. Basic quarter of a second up on the field so far.
Just keep getting faster and faster, don't they? I mean, he had a really solid debut season in Formula E last year with Envision. 2 pole positions.
Sam Bird is on a full power lap now. You can see the car bouncing around. You'll see the car bottom out about halfway, actually about 3/4 of the way down the hill. But Sam, look at his hands correcting the slides. Nice. Looks like the grip is definitely coming up through this sector. You heard it bottoming out right there, right next to the microphone. Great position of the microphone by the crew. Sam Bird, 300 of a second up.
This is going to be a really important lap for Sam. We know how he can be affected mentally quite a lot.
He's doing a great job. He's now over a tenth up. As he comes out onto the long straight, got to get a good exit to drag the car up this hill. Now you've got to pick your braking point with pinpoint accuracy. Not too early though, because you'll bleed time away. Looked nice and neat through 19. He was able to carry the speed. Now one more corner to go. You've done all that work, Nicky. Well, he's got some traffic as well, but you don't want to mess up the last corner. He turned in pretty early.
A 1:09.7177. Well done, Sam Bird. Oh, but just pipped by Jake Dennis.
But by nearly 2/10, which is a lot of time in Formula E.
Well, Jake Dennis came into this saying, yeah, I'm no longer a rookie. I'm going to be taken as a serious title contender. And, well, that's how you do it, isn't it?
Absolutely right. John-Eric Byrne on a lap. Not had a great first sector.
Giovanazzi also just going out on his quick lap.
So 5 minutes left. If you're going to make another qualifying simulation attempt, you need to get on with it, and that's probably, you should probably leave in the pits about now to have a chance of doing that. The teams have got it worked out to the second of when they need to leave, but then if you get traffic, that can you've got to take that into into consideration too.
But given this is the last few minutes on track before you're going to go out for qualifying, your qualifying group, you're on the 220 kilowatts. So do you want to do your lap in 220,
well,
or do you want to do it in 250?
You've done a few laps in 220 already, so you've got half an idea, but you've definitely got to do some on and 250, absolutely right. And Jean-Eric Vergne is on a lap at 250. He's coming down to the first split, and he's a tenth and a half up already as he comes down through turn 13. Sorry, I was one corner too early, braking for 14. Neat and tidy, got the car rotated well. But you see that traffic ahead, you're just thinking now, come on, please, either get out of the way or keep going. I think is he getting a little bit held up? Yeah, just a little bit, but he got a bit of a draft there, a bit of a slipstream from the Mercedes. And he's lost a little bit, though. He's now 600ths behind. Looks a bit untidy through 18-19, but whether he just slightly offline, whether he carried the speed, it's a great camera view. Let's see how close he gets, how far he gets up the curb. Perfect positioning, and he goes third.
Is he going to be happy with that or frustrated with that, knowing Jean-Eric Vergne?
There's always frustration when you're not quickest, but you've got to know what you've got for this afternoon. It's one thing being quickest in practice. You've got to understand what you need to do to be quickest when it counts later this afternoon. That is the important thing. That's really what practice is all about. We look at the timesheet. Oh, a big lockup from somebody into turn 18, but it's so important that you've got the information you need for this afternoon.
And also looking into the weather, you know, it's going to be so much colder on track for the race this afternoon, or this evening, I should say, you know, under the lights, kicking off at 8 p.m. local time. Completely different set of conditions.
Well, absolutely. You know, the sun, the biggest thing is the sun not being on the surface, not heating up the asphalt. That's probably the biggest thing. The aerodynamics, Formula E cars are designed really with no aero, so you're not going to have the effects you would have in a downforce car, Formula 1 car, an Indy car, big sports car that you would normally get. But the track temperature would be a massive, massive difference.
So do you think we'll see much tyre deg in this race?
Oh yeah, well, especially with 10% extra power this year. We see James Barkley on TV, the Jaguar guys watching on.
So will Jake Dennis be quickest on top? But Sam Bird in at P3. Oliver Askew P13, which is pretty good.
Yeah, good job.
For a first P2 session.
Yeah, absolutely right. And Oliver Rowland, you can listen to the car sliding around. Is that because he's carrying so much more momentum, or is it because he's lacking grip? We'll find out as second here as goes through the first timeline. It's because he's carrying momentum. 10th and a half up from Oliver Rowland. He's absolutely wringing the neck of that car. Brilliant work, just pushing as hard as he possibly can. The second timeline, lost a little bit. Sam Bird's on another lap too. It's all happening.
I mean, Oliver Rowland did a phenomenal
it's rush
job.
hour here for Oliver Rowland, though. But that's going to cost him time. You know, he just unsights you. You're lost a bit of the back end, but you're thinking, are they going to lift? Yeah, this is costing Oliver Rowland.
Will he be getting frustrated at this moment, or I mean, it's FP2?
Yeah, absolutely, will be getting frustrated. But look, he's been a good guy. Those guys all sort of got in his way, and now he's making sure he doesn't hold them up. And he went quickest, but there's more in that car. I think that's going to be a fairly potent qualifying combination today. Sam Bird, P2, just over a 100th behind.
And Oliver Rowland has been generally excellent in qualifying. You know, I think 4 pole positions and 8 front row starts last season. So this could be a match made in heaven, Oliver Rowland's move to Mahindra Racing.
Yeah, and that car was quick last year in qualifying as well. Had a great average in qualifying with Alex Lynn. So, you know, that really could be, and with the new qualifying format, I think it's it's going to benefit more and more week in, week out. The guys who can qualify well. Oh, a big lock up from Robin Frein. Sorry,
quickest in sector 1. This could be a big lap.
Got a bit of traffic though. Looks like Jean-Eric Vergne is not in the mood to get out of the way. He's probably starting his lap himself. 24 seconds to go. Vergne's got traffic ahead with the Porsche. Frijns. P5 at the moment. The frustrations of practice.
It's busy out there.
I think what's happening here, they're sending the Mercedes out on cold tyres to practice a start. At the end of the session, everybody gets a chance to practice a start. It's pointless practicing it when you've got 3 laps on your tyres and they're nice and warm. You've got to practice it in proper conditions, which is with cold tyres. So smart thinking by the Mercedes team.
Nice. And it is always critical to get a good start, but particularly in Formula E, of course. Overtaking rather tricky on these street circuits.
Well, if you can make up some 2 or 3 places early in that first corner, it puts you in a better energy position as well, because obviously you've got to use extra energy to make those overtaking manoeuvres as well as just get on with the race. But yeah, any position you can make up on those first couple of corners, it puts you in so much better position come the end of the race.
And of course the races will be a bit longer, because we've got this new rule that we're adding additional time on when the safety car goes out. But that is the end of the session.
And the yellow at turn 15, that is because of the practice start. It doesn't mean someone's gone off. It's because of the practice start. We had an issue last year up in Rome, and that just allows the teams and reminds the drivers there's a yellow out, so go nice and easy through turns 15, 16 and 17.
So Oliver Rowland, quickest in the session, followed by Sam Bird and Jake Dennis. But yeah, back to the on board with Oliver Rowland there. So this was his the quickest lap of the session.
Now this is he's doing his in lap there. He's got his hands. He's not really. He's kind of relaxing, I think, as he comes up to the line.
Winding down time instead.
Here we go. Mitch Evans start. You can see it left a couple of lines and then picked up traction and off it went. That really was smart thinking from the Mercedes guys, I think, to actually do that, to come out and get a proper read on the start, because then they can adjust the software for the start this evening, manage the torque of the electric motor as efficiently as possible to get the car going forwards and not in a cloud of wheel spin smoke.
I mean, tyres for qualifying as well is going to be a big talking point.
Oh yeah, what are they all going to do? Everybody, you know, are they all going to do the same thing? Some people think they found when to swap the tyres, they found an advantage somewhere.
And how many quali laps they will do, particularly in that group session.
Yeah, I think you'll see one in the first 6 minutes, and everybody's going to go back out. The problem is you want to leave it to the very end, Nicky, because that's when the track's at its best. But if you leave it to, you see the Venturi guys practicing the start together, practicing the braking zone too for turn 18.
And that's going off there to activate your attack mode, which is just off the racing line, but gives you that extra 30 kilowatts of power. The drivers are told, what, an hour before the race, how long they get it for? But it's up to 8 minutes during the course of the race. Usually we've seen 2 sets of 4 minutes, but it's up to the FIA to tell the teams.
And then the drivers now will go back to the garage, get out of the car, have a debrief with the engineers, and they're going to they'll probably sit there for half an hour plus. They'd sit there all night if you let them, but unfortunately we've got qualifying coming up pretty quickly. We've got to get the information to the team as quickly and as efficiently as possible, and then get things ready for qualifying. And then after that, you're thinking just race, race, race tonight.
First qualifying with the new rules. We cannot wait to see what's going to happen, that's for sure. But the drivers will be going back in after doing their practice start, as Dario said. Quick debrief, quick spot of lunch, and then qualifying will kick off at 3:30 local time this afternoon. And the race will be at 8 PM tonight under the lights.
I'm not sure they'll be having lunch before qualifying at 3:30.
Really?
Yeah, if you're a driver, I would certainly. Each is different. I wouldn't have. There's no way I'd have food in my stomach that close.
How much time do you need to allow between eating and driving?
Me?
Racing?
I would have breakfast early in the morning, and I wouldn't eat again until after the race.
You get up early in the morning?
Just for that one thing. Just for that one thing, Nikki. That was it.
And go back to bed.
I found it would put me to sleep. Otherwise, you would relax too much, and yeah, I had to have an empty stomach to go.
Would you drink energy drinks?
Like water and various
brands
energy
mentioned.
drinks. Yeah, you had to be careful what you drank though.
Right, well, let's take a look at the results from the second practice this weekend. FP2, Oliver Rowland there. He was quickest yesterday, and he's quickest today for his new team, Mahindra Racing, with a 1 minute, 0.8957. Sam Bird for Jaguar TCS Racing. Jake Dennis in at third for Avalanche Andretti. Antonio Felix Costa in at fourth. Then Oliver Askew, our rookie driver for Avalanche Andretti, P10. And Sergio Sette Camera, who showed strong performance here last year at P11. The Rocket Venturi boys together, P12 and 13 there. Just over 5/10 off Oliver Rowland. Dan Tickton of P19 out performs his teammate Oliver Turvey at Neo 333, and Antonio Giovanazzi, of course, the other rookie driver for Dragon Penske Autosport, closes out the 22 drivers in FP2. So, Oliver Rowland, could he be the man of the moment? I'm sure he's feeling quite confident there, walking back to his garage, his new home, the Mahindra Racing team, the Indian team, which actually they've recently announced that we might be having an Indian race next season, which would be absolutely phenomenal for the Indian fans. Rocket Venturi, Edo Mortara, wandering back to his garage for a bit of a debrief to work out what's going on. Perhaps not quite as quick as we would have expected to see from them. Nick de Vries, happy that he got to the end of that session without any problems, I'm sure. Managed to complete the full 30 minutes on track. There we have Antonio Felix Costa having a quick chat with his engineer. Now, a reminder to get your votes in for Fan Boost. Of course, you can give the top 5 drivers an extra 100 kilojoules of energy. Antonio Felix Costa, always a popular one with the fans. Antonio Giovanazzi is obviously bringing a few Formula 1 fans over with him, in at 24%. Mitch Evans, Stoffel Van Dorn and Nick de Vries. But that could all change if you get involved. Vote online at Formula E or FIAFormulaE.com/fanboost. But remember, it is 1 vote per day. Okay, let's take a look at what happened in the second session of the weekend here in Diriyah, Saudi Arabia. That was Oliver Askew. A lot going on for him this weekend, a lot to learn. Jean-Eric Verne getting prepped, the Jean-Eric Verne 2.0. And a bit of a high five there from the Jag team. Okay, so this is all 22 cars going out on track. The session was slightly delayed, but then it got off to a nice, clean start.
You see on board with Stoffel Van Dorn as he comes down the hill. Look, I'm just correcting that lovely slide. Oh, bit of a moment, turn 18 for Alexander Sims in the Mahindra. Got a bit excited on the braking zone. Dan Tinktum, big double lockup in turn 18 again. But I thought he did a great job in the session. On board with the Mercedes cars, look at him correcting the steering.
There's Pascal Wehrlein for the Tag Heuer Porsche team.
Yeah, you got to say Oliver Turvey, not a great session for him again. He's uses the attack mode activations on. He's got a bit of work to do to try and get up to his teammate. Oh.
Yeah, you don't want to be outperformed by your teammate, do you?
No,
on
never.
their rookie weekend.
Jake Dennis in the Andretti car, and there's the man that was quickest in the session, Oliver Rowland in the Mahindra.
Very excited to see what he can do in qualifying, that's for sure. Okay, so lots of discussions for these drivers in the next couple of hours before qualifying does get underway. There is Stoffel Van Dorn from Mercedes EQ, Antonio Felix da Costa. Oh, he's got his laptop up, doing a bit of studying. Dan Tickton has always got some really interesting headgear on. He's going to be an easy one to spot in the pit lane, that's for sure. But a solid performance from him on his debut weekend. Oliver looking a little bit stressed out, considering he just put in such a good performance.